You're listening to WCAT Radio, your home for authentic Catholic programming.
I want to thank God for this opportunity to spread the word about Whitney. And I, pray for wisdom to say the right words to help people understand what this disease is and what it does. I pray that our ultimate goal is a world free of ALS. Mm-hmm. And I just pray for Jesus to guide my steps through this process.
Mm-hmm. Amen. Okay. So as I mentioned, I know almost nothing about ALS, and I suspect that that's the case for most people who don't come into direct contact with it.
It definitely is. It's a disease that flies under the radar. Mm-hmm. And I actually have done this race for 10 years. I'm a runner, and I knew I was helping a cause, but I didn't know much about the cause, and I never in a million years thought it would affect my life the way it did. Mm-hmm. So it's been a really hard experience, but I can see God's hand intervening in it. And I know Whitney's she said her biggest accomplishment was her faith. That was what she was most proud of. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I'm trying to do her justice by telling her story. And I always want to start by being like, she's a woman of great faith. Mm-hmm. Okay. I guess if you want me to explain what I've learned about ALS, mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. to get started, it's also known as Lou Gehrig's disease, yep. which is how most people do know it. Mm-hmm. To put it simply, it's a breakdown of the motor neurons in the brain that affect the muscles. So the muscles aren't receiving those cues. So over time, they atrophy and they die off. So mm-hmm. what's happening is the mind remains completely intact. It's a neuromuscular disease, and it actually just kills the muscles off one by one. So usually in everybody's case is very different, as it will start with the hands and then it will go to the feet and the extremities. Hers went straight to her lungs. So she did not have as much time as most people do, but it just is a disease that your mind is 100% aware of what's happening to your body, and there's nothing you can do about it. So week by week, you lose those privileges that you take for granted, such as moving a hand, scratching an itch, feeding yourself. It just progressively will take away another freedom, that things that I never thought about, picking up a spoon, and what a blessing that can be. Mm-hmm. Until it's taken away from you. And it was a very eye-opening mm-hmm. in the grace that she handled it with, because she also had another disease called erythromelalgia, which is a pain disease. So she had ALS, where she was having trouble breathing and she wasn't able to move. And then she also had this pain disease on top of that. So mm-hmm. I would just think this is too much suffering for any human to go through, but yet she smiled and prayed and yeah.
Mm-hmm. So was she exposed to something like a chemical, or?
She was not, and there is really no known cause mm-hmm. to ALS. It needs more funding for more research. They do notice it a lot in military. With veterans, they do notice that there is a higher percentage of them that get it. They don't know what causes it. She was an athlete. I don't know if she was a dancer. I don't know if that had anything to trigger it. They just really don't know what causes it. And it's scary. It can happen to anybody.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So how old was she when she got this?
33.
Oh, boy. And how long did she survive with it?
Just shy of 2 years.
Wow.
So the average life expectancy for ALS is 2 to 5 years, and she fought so hard, and I think it really was her faith that she was able to survive what was happening to her as long as she did. Mm-hmm. And she had a husband that was just a best friend and a caretaker, and her son lifted her up, and It was just in the midst of this terrible thing. I see life different now because you see these blessings that I don't think that I would have noticed beforehand. And when you just, see the kindness of people and people just making meals and doing stuff like that, it was thing to see.
Yeah, things that we now take for granted,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Man, I sure try not to now.
Yeah. So, what kind of dance did she do? How did it affect her when she had to give that up?
Well, actually, what kind of dance didn't she do? It was a really good question. She was so talented. She was a singer, a dancer, and an actress before she decided to go to medical school. So I know during medical school, she was not able because it was very intensive getting her degrees. So I know she wasn't able to do as much dancing and stuff like that while she did that, but did a lot of musical theater. I believe her undergrad was biology and musical theater, as a matter of fact, which I thought really speaks to the person that she is, because she just had these, her interests were an enormous spectrum, So, so she spent the last 13 years of her life getting through medical school, and she started noticing her weakness in her hands right around the time that she would be taking her boards. So she did finish her family medicine practice from home, and right around the time she got diagnosed, she actually did fulfill her dream. She was board certified, practicing, family medicine doctors. So she didn't let it stop her.
Good.
Practice some medicine from home.
So obviously a very strong-willed woman.
Oh yeah. And honestly, the funniest person I have ever met in my life.
I see. You did tell me what it does to the body. How did this kind of affect you? This was a friend of yours, a very close friend, and it had to have some direct impact on you too.
It did. I honestly feel like it almost changed every facet of my life and how I looked at things. All of a sudden, I think what's really important in life just came into kind of a very direct, I don't know what I'm trying to say. It was just very clear to me what was important and what was not important. And I guess I didn't even realize that was happening because I kind of jumped into friend mode and I just wanted to do whatever I could to help her. So I just decided that we were going to pack as much life into the time she had left as we could. And we weren't going to give up hope. And I tell you what, those 2 years of memories I made with her, they taught me how to live life much differently when tomorrow is not promised to you. So, those little things that you do are big, and to kind of take to slow down and take mental steps of these moments in life, because they're all a gift. I try so hard not to take them for granted anymore, because I just knew every time I left her house, I'm like, I'm never going to leave without saying I love you. Because you don't know. And really, that's a philosophy I feel like I should adopt with everybody in my life.
So that's interesting. I had cancer 4 years ago, and I was already advanced stage 2 when it was diagnosed. And I have never left the house, or I can't even, it's more than not left the house. I must tell my husband 100 times a day I love him. And it's very different, because it sounds almost like, oh, there she goes again, but it's not that. It's like you feel like if you don't tell them every opportunity you have, then if you do die, they won't know enough.
Well, it looks like I'm talking to a very strong woman as well. So
yeah, I'm known as a battle axe, but
good for you. Keep fighting, and you got a smile on your face. That's inspiring. But yeah, you can say I love you too much. So my kids are both teenage boys, so they're probably like, Mom, I know. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to stop telling you. So
yeah. It's funny. I still work, and I was working at the seminary, and I used to. I'd work until about noon. I'd go have my chemo or my radiations. Sometimes it was both. And then I'd come back and work the rest of my 8 hours. And I did that because I didn't want the disease to control me. Even if it might have killed me, yes, but it wasn't going to control me while I was alive.
exactly.
And the rector came up to me one day. He said, you can go back to your room and take a nap if you need to. It's like, nope, gotta get this work done.
Yeah, keep fighting on, keep pushing ahead. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. There really is something to that. On the other hand, my disease was nowhere near as debilitating as what you're talking about. And that's a very different situation.
Right.
Yeah. So, there's no question that cancer is not a great diagnosis, but ALS is life-changing.
It is. And there's so much, it's just, there's clinical trials, but it's hard to get into them. And by the time Whitney's lungs were affected so quickly that she was not able to do any of the clinical trials. And she was like, I have been handed a terminal, illness. Let me try anything. And there's not enough funding. They have to give those clinical trials to people that, it might be able to have a better chance of helping. So that was very eye-opening to me. And it just made me feel, it makes one feel really helpless when you just want to do everything to help. And there's just not enough resources out there right now. And that's why I just want to get the word out there about ALS and, how it just traps in their body and it just needs a cure.
Yeah, it's not just a lack of resources. I understand that it takes a lot of time and energy to make medicine and it costs a lot.
Yes.
But to me, to be fair, anyone who still has any chance of getting help from it should receive it.
Oh, I could not agree with you more.
Someone would be told, we don't have enough to give it to you. You're too sick. That's heartbreaking.
Right. And then she has a 5-year-old son, and gosh, give her, just more time with her son and a husband that their 10-year anniversary was a week after she passed. So, on this side of heaven, we're not going to ever understand God's greater plan in all of this. I'm trying, but my mortal brain can't wrap around it. I just kind of try to cling to my faith and get through.
Yeah, what it says is that in the eyes of the medical community, not every life is equally worth saving or even trying to save. So I think that they need a primer and the Catholic approach to what a person is, because clearly, the sicker people get, the more help they need.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway. So let's see. So you made a promise to Whitney, I understand.
I did. We were actually having a conversation about, because she had fallen, she was not able to walk anymore. And I knew how bad she'd talk about like the little things, like I just want to get out of the house. I want to, go to Target, like things I would take for granted in my daily life. And I was like, get that wheelchair, because the ALS Association has a closet of equipment that, that's what part of the funds go to, is to give these ALS patients mobility.
Sure.
But she told me, and I just knew in my heart when she told me, she's like, well, the timeline doesn't make sense. And I said, well, what do you mean? And she said, I don't have enough time for the wheelchair to come in. So she had known at that point. they had given her, I think, 6 months, which she exceeded. And she told me she was going to have hospice come in. And I was like, any help you can get, I'm happy for you. Whatever is going to bring you comfort and help is what I want for you as well. So I said, I'm going to make you a promise, Whitney. I said, I'm never going to stop telling people about you. I'm never going to stop trying to advocate for you. Everybody, I feel like the best compliment I can get is when people are like, I never met her, but I feel like I knew her. Mm-hmm. And I promised her I would keep doing that, and she will continue to be remembered. And I will do my best to help her legacy live on, because it was a great one. And, I just know that she's up in heaven being like, well, if I can help somebody, because that's why she wanted to be a doctor. She was a helper, and she just wanted to help people. So I know if she looks down and sees that her name and her story is helping bring awareness to this disease, maybe on the right track.
Yeah. Well, you're doing a great thing by making sure that works out, so informing people of what the disease is like, of what people go through, that's important, because most of us have no idea, except that we know that it's a dread disease.
Yeah. I would visit her at least once a week. And I never, we talked about everything and we were very open with each other, but I never wanted to openly just let all the tears out. So I remember, her breathing got worse and she got put on a ventilator. I remember very clearly there was a Target next to her house and I would just cry, because I just waited, because it was just heartbreaking to see this for nothing she did, nothing that was her fault. And just seeing Eden being taken off the table and breathing on her own, walking to the bathroom, was just every time you would see her. But at the same time, those times were filled with so many blessings too. And I've never felt so connected to a friend and so close. And it was, It's hard to explain how those two things can coexist, pain and joy all at the same time.
Oh, it's that unusual. If people have the positive attitude, it's a lot of times it's more, why me? And when that, you feel so sorry for yourself, you can't get past it. And so what you're describing is a woman who's able to get past that. And you as her friend were able to also. So that's, that's why you see positive fruits as opposed to, a pity party, which I'm not saying that lightly, because believe me, I understand about pity parties, but it just be that. If it's, that's the important thing.
Yeah. And it was kind of funny how it all would come together. I can tell you, I had somebody bring a sloth to her house. I have video from it. It is the most precious thing, because she loved the sloth animal. So this farmer that he said, I said, well, can you record a visit? He said, I'll do one better. I'll bring it to our house. So we did that. We watched we started watching all the Marvel movies. We had a question book that we asked, that we got to know each other even better. We dressed her dogs up and had birthday parties. You know what I mean? It was just things that an element of thinking outside the box that you would never do before, but it wasn't work. It just felt important and just what we needed to do to make this time so special.
Yes, I agree. Mm-hmm. Of course, I have a cat, so we're not going to be dressing her up.
Yeah, probably not. I have 3 and they would not like it. Whitney's dogs did not mind.
Survive, yeah. So, anyway, so then we have this Whitney's Warriors race team. What's that all?
So sorry, there was a fly. It's in Kimmswick, Missouri. There is a race that was started by a gentleman. His name is Greg Ratliff, who has been a tremendous blessing to me. He lost his wife to ALS And him and his adult children wanted to do something to honor her. So they started this 5K 1 mile, and it's right along the Mississippi. I'm a runner. It's my favorite course. It's just beautiful. And he just wanted, he wanted to honor Nancy. He wanted to bring awareness to ALS and what it does. And it has grown from a race the first year that was 100 people. Last year we had 800 people, and he has grown it so large that they've raised $250,000. So I've done this race, like I said, every year, not thinking I would ever have a personal connection to ALS. Sure. So the ALS Association reached out to me and said, would you like to have a team? I was like, yes. So we have Whitney's Warriors, and I have been trying to raise money for Whitney. All the money goes straight to the ALS Association in her name.
That's great.
Yeah, the work that organization does, it's a family you never think you'll be a part of, that if you have to have this happen to you, I couldn't ask for a better group of people to hold me up and help me up through the process. They are just the best.
Yeah.
They really are.
People, I think a lot of times the people that are involved with these groups, I mean, I was just stunned at how good the people I had to deal with who were cancer healers, the radiation, the nurses. And I mean, they always had a smile on their face. And I mean, exactly. they literally were working among the living dead in many cases. And I just was stunned at how, I mean, I used to actually enjoy, this is a little weird, I used to enjoy seeing the radiation guys. They knew I had a cat. I brought 2 pictures. Brought in 2 pictures. I said, okay, this is a picture of Lightning looking at his daddy, and the cat's like all love. And then this is a picture of the cat looking at me, and the cat. Oh, but it was like that silliness that actually.
Yes. It's good for the soul.
Yeah. I mean, it was like, oh, okay, I'm going to go to radiation now, but I'll see those great guys and girls, and we'll talk about the cat. I mean, it's bizarre, but it really does help. So
yes.
Stand a sloth and dogs makes perfect sense to me, and I bet it makes perfect sense to anyone who's been through that kind of disease. Any really serious disease. But yeah, that sounds like fun.
Yeah, it was. And, I've always been a person, I'm always been really anxious around doctors, anything, which is funny because she was my best friend and she was a doctor, but, and the things in, just any kind of illness would just scare me. And I think it does most people. So the fact that I feel led to, me and Whitney had a book that we asked questions out of it, and there was 3,000 questions in it, and we got to 825. And I thought, that book is unfinished and I need to finish it, because what really struck me with this, I think any terminal illness, particularly ALS being, I think it kind of frightens people, the isolation and the loneliness. Yeah. And I'm like, if I asked the association, I said, if you have any patients that want someone to come, I want to finish this book. I want to walk that journey with somebody, because if that was me in the same shoes, I would pray that somebody would, that loneliness, I would be up at night thinking, like, how can I help? Because I think out of everything, that was what really got me the most. So here, this girl that's scared of anything medical, you know what I mean? How God works. And I'm like, and now I want to go do this. So, and it's through his strength, not my own, because I certainly don't have it. But it just feels like a calling that I want to fulfill.
I understand. It makes sense. There's nothing worse than an unfinished project that needs to be finished.
Yes. And I got I can't do math very well in my head, but 2,000 something questions left. So got my work cut out for me.
But you started the journey, so you should finish it.
Absolutely. Oh, thank you. Those words kind of gave me chills, so thank you.
Okay. So for people who want to donate, how can we? How should we?
There is actually several ways that you can donate. There is a Facebook page, and I can send, I don't know exactly, this is my first interview, and I'm so glad it's with you. A link that I don't know if we can drop in, because it's a pretty long link for me to say. So I can send a link. There's also a Facebook page for the Kimmswick ALS 5K that you can go in, and there's an about section on it, and then there's a link under there as well. And really, to me, any donation helping the ALS Association is a blessing.
Okay.
If they choose Whitney Warriors, of course, I'm a little partial to Whitney's Warriors because it's my team. But honestly, the competition with the teams is very friendly because we know the money is all going to the same place. So yeah, through Facebook, through the Kimmswick ALS 5K page, and if there's any way that I can share that link, I definitely will.
I'm sure if you email the link to me, I'll make sure that they get to to Sebastian Mahfoud, who's taping this, and he can put it. He's much more tech savvy than me.
He is more tech savvy, I think, than anybody I know, including my teenagers, and that is saying a lot because they're very tech savvy.
I absolutely agree. So let's see, if a person can't make a contribution, how else can they help?
Honestly, pray, and pray again. Not just for patients with ALS, but really anybody that is dealing with any kind of illness. I just think there's something so beautiful about knowing that there's somebody out there praying for you when you're feeling lonely or when you're feeling scared of the diagnosis. I was really struck. Another thing that I did an outreach with the ALS Association at a high school, and we wrote letters to ALS patients. And the feedback we got from just that small act of these kids writing from their hearts and sending a letter, something as simple as a letter, was so impactful. So I think things like that just combat that loneliness and let people know that there's people out there that care. Because I know the ALS Association has people that would definitely accept cards. And I know probably the cancer. So any of those charities, we're all fighting the kind of, the same battle of just trying to help and trying to let people know they're not alone and they're loved.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I've heard of a writing like for the elderly, who are isolated. I just realized I'm elderly. No, I didn't. I knew that before. But it's like, someone's going to send me a letter.
Well, my kids tell me I'm elderly too, so I might get a letter too.
They're wrong. So the ALS Association uses these donations, the financial donations, to help the patients and to contribute to medical.
They do. They have care coordinators that come to the house and work with things such as, how to use the equipment, teaching the caretaker on how to use the equipment. Just seeing, because every case of ALS is different. So they can be like, okay, well, this might be a good fit for you. And they have that donation closet, which is so neat that they can just be like, okay, this isn't going to cost you anything. But through donations, we do have this. They actually had like a bathtub that Whitney could get in that was just part of the donation closet. So that is a huge way they help. They do a lot of outreach. There's races and walks, and there's a golf tournament they do. My goodness, their advocacy. They do a lot of advocacy and research as well. So that money is definitely put to to good use. And I guess I can say I have been blessed enough to be a part of this organization for, my goodness, a year and a half now. And it just it's a healing process to see them out just fighting this fight, and the camaraderie with everybody in the organization coming together to help. And all that's possible through donations, because I don't want, when the world lost Whitney, we lost an incredible light to this world and an incredible doctor, because she was a doctor that, and she actually graduated close to top of her class, highest test score taker, which she would never tell anybody because she was very humble. But I just think, my goodness, you know what I mean? If we had a cure, she might still be here with us today. This world needs a lot of love and a lot of people out there that, you know, can provide good health care as well. So,
well, perhaps she's helping from where she is now.
Boy, I think you're right. I think you're exactly right.
She just needed the knowledge before she left, and she uses it now.
My gosh, I'm glad talking to you is healing my heart, because we just lost her on April 27th. So it's very, there's a first of everything without her. So I was afraid this is the first interview I've done. I'm like, I'm going to probably cry, and because I miss her so bad. And so thank you for making this so easy to talk to you and share Whitney's story.
Well, it's heartbreaking. I'm getting teary. It's hard to know what people go through. Death, I don't think, is ever easy, but some ways are worse. And when you see someone young, someone young and capable and wanting to help the world, it's hard.
Oh, boy, she did.
Oh,
she did. She's just neat.
So, do you have any future outreach projects that you do?
I do. I actually have this one thing that Whitney, I learned so much from her, and just things I normally would not just dive into. I'm finding myself, dive in and learn. And that's the only way I'm going to do it. So tomorrow I actually have an outreach through SSM Health, which was she was a Mercy doctor in SSM, but I know she wouldn't care, even though they're a competition. And I'm working at a gym, and I'm actually going to be telling her story and spreading awareness there. And we're looking at doing more outreach at schools, because, just these, I think maybe this generation coming up gets a bad rap. But what I see is they're so giving and so loving, and they want to help others like no other generation. So when people will talk bad about them, I'll be like, wait, hold on. Let me tell you what I've seen. And it gives me a lot of hope. So we're going to try to go to more schools and educate them, and maybe they'll find a career in healthcare that will help ALS patients. Maybe they will form. This one school we went to formed a club that would actually go to patients before COVID, and they would do yard work. They would fold laundry, just things like that. We're always, it's a group that's always, they're not like set in their ways. Like, we have to do this, we have to do this, we have to do this. It's like, how can we make this to fit what is happening today, and how can we help today? So
having someone to do mundane tasks like that can be enormous.
Exactly. So we're hoping with, when COVID starts to, I know it's kind of made a little bit of a resurgence, that we can get back in the homes and really help. And
people really appreciate that. It's, it's nice when you can come in and say, well, I'm going to do this for you, as opposed to what do you want me to do? Because even though both are good people, may be a little shy to say, would you fold my...
And it's hard. I know for me, it's very hard to ask for help. I don't want to ask for help. You know what I mean? So when someone's like, I'm going to do that, and you can be like, okay, well, thank you. So.
That's good. So How do you live differently other than spending obviously significant amounts of time ALS world? How do you live differently after you've walked through a terminal illness with someone that
I have to say, I think one of the things that I've changed the most with is I was a planner. There's nothing wrong with planning, but I mean, my plans were like, I had a 1-year plan and a 5-year plan and a 10-year plan. And I took all of that for granted. Like that was just going to happen, like almost, not like an entitlement almost that I didn't realize I was doing. But now on the other side of it, I can be like, well, that's a little presumptuous to just assume that you're going to have all of that to plan. So yes, I still plan, but I plan with a lot more grace, and I try to live a lot more in the moment. You know what I mean? Like, okay, if I'm, in this day and I'm worried about tomorrow, I'm taking joy away from this day. So I don't always get it right. Trust me. I mess up all the time. But I'm trying to be more mindful and more loving and more giving. Because I feel like for everything Whitney gave me and the time I got to spend with her, any little bit, like I just kind of I want to live my life as a thank you to her. Mm-hmm. So it's really changed my perspective on a lot of things.
I think you were both very lucky to be such a good friend to her and to have her be such a good friend to you. I have, but it's like that. It sounds so intense, and we don't usually get that many intense relationships in our lives.
It's true. It was. She sent me a meme once that said that God winked and said, "I knew you two would like each other," and so yeah, I thank him every day for the gift of having her in my life. And I think sometimes I'm like, why'd you choose me? I didn't know what I was doing, and kind of learning along the way. And right now, I don't always still know what I'm doing, but I figure if I do it with a heart to want to give to her legacy, that I'll get where I want to go.
I think you will. Mm-hmm. So is there anything else that you would like to tell us about Whitney or about ALS?
Just the kind of how she loved her family and how she loved her son. She was such a good mom. She, even when she was completely paralyzed, I know her last day on earth, she got to have her son lay in bed with her because her priorities were God, family. I feel like she really had how life should be lived straight in her head. And she was so humble because she was so talented. I'm like, is there anything you're not good at? Like, you can dance, you can sing, you're an actress, you're funny, you know what I mean? And she was just humble. She was Dr. Knapp, but to me and to everybody else, she was Whitney. No airs about her, just feel like God made her extra special. I think he makes us all extra special, but boy, Whitney, something else.
Don't all respond appropriately to what he's made. Yeah, I've seen.
I guess my prayer is that maybe from my words that people can get a picture of a girl that was just as beautiful on the inside as she was on the outside.
Good. Okay, well, I certainly have enjoyed this conversation. I
have too. I really have too.
More of a conversation, but I certainly enjoyed it. I certainly learned quite a bit about ALS and about your friend and about you.
Thank you, and I loved hearing about your journey as well.
Thank you.
You're pretty inspiring. So thank you for sharing your story with me too.
Sure. Would you like to close us in?
I will close in prayer. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you, Jesus, for blessing this time and I feel like you created a real connection where we were able to give awareness to ALS and really anybody suffering from any terminal illness or any illness. God, please let the lonely people know that they are not alone, and please put it upon more hearts to reach out and help others. And thank you for this opportunity. And I pray that I can let you continue to guide my steps and do Whitney's legacy proud. Amen.
Thank you very much. And don't forget to send me those links. I'll make sure they get up there.
You are amazing. Thank you so much.
Anyway, God bless you, and God bless
you. Thank you.
Okay.
I hope I get to talk to you soon.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye.
Hello, God's beloved. I'm Annabelle Mosley, author, professor of theology, and host of Then Sings My Soul and Destination Sainthood on WCAT Radio. I invite you to listen in and find inspiration along this sacred journey we're traveling together to make our lives a masterpiece and, with God's grace, become saints. Join me, Annabelle Mosley, for Then Sings My Soul and Destination Sainthood on WCAT Radio. God bless you. Remember, you're never alone. God is always with you.
Thank you for listening to a production of WCAT Radio. Please join us in our mission of evangelization. And don't forget, love lifts up when knowledge takes flight.